Let's check here. Should be live. Took me all the way out of YouTube. There it goes. Share this. Boom. My man Pashai. Okay. Hey, y'all let us know if y'all can hear us, man. Let us know if y'all can hear us. Let's see. I'm playing, but I don't hear nothing. Okay, no, we're good. Hey, man, first and foremost, we'll say call halal, Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Akadash. Send double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to Yakim out there pushing the word of Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shai, sincerity and truth. As you can see, man, brother Ariala, I got Wakari Kwan with me from London. Hope you brothers have had a beautiful Passover, man, a sharp shock. But we meant to record this a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago.
It might be 2 weeks. Crazy.
2 weeks ago, man. But y'all know how it is, being on different sides of the pond. But Spirit had to where we were able to link up this evening. We wanted to touch on, some of the aspects of the path to the MOTB and some of the things that have come up for brothers that's been paying attention. You see that recently the BRICS banks have announced that they want to do more with CBDCs. And this is something that we have been, talking about, telling everybody, you got two sides of the same coin that's all leading to the MOTB. There's this they want to make it seem like there's this opposition that's happening as far as the type of economic system that they want to roll out. It's like, oh, they're going to take down the dollar. They're going to do this and the Chinese yuan. And they're going to switch who they use to, do oil sales with. But it's still all leading to a Edomite-controlled digital MOTB control grid system. And we want to highlight that today, talk about some mindset today, go through the prophecies and talk about that. Did you have any opening statements out?
No, we can go into it.
Well, I wanted to start out with this scripture here that I have pulled up, as you, Akim, and you sisters as well can see on the screen. It's Psalms chapter 36, verse 3. It says, the words of his mouth are iniquity and deceit. He hath left off to be wise and to do good. He deviseth mischief upon his bed. He setteth himself in a way that is not good. He abhorreth not evil. And so what I wanted to highlight is that he deviseth mischief upon his bed. And that's what we see when we're looking out at the different policies and the different doctrines or legislations that they pushing out. We know it's a bunch of mischief. We know that it's leading to the MOTB. Now, this article that I have here that's on Watcher Guru, a bunch of crypto nerds. But basically it says BRICS announces new blockchain-based crypto payment system. All right, now this came out on March 5th, right? They talk about de-dollarization. This whole idea of de-dollarization there's not a war against the dollar. It's a controlled collapse into a new system from both sides. From both sides. Okay? Because to take the dollar out the system means world economic collapse on both sides. China would collapse and America would collapse with if you take the dollar out the system. Okay? That's like trying to take somebody that's been on crack for 30 years and just cold turkey take them off. They would just go through withdrawals and probably die. All right? That's what we're looking at. So when they talk about the de-dollarization of the economy, they're talking about leading you into the mark of the beast. All right. It says BRICS member Russia announced the creation of a new blockchain based payment system on Tuesday. The blockchain and cryptocurrency based payment mechanism will be an independent system for trade settlements. The new BRICS payment system will position itself as an alternative option to the US dollar. Okay. This alternative option will lead you to the MOTB. It will not be an independent system. This is a coordinated effort. This is why all of these people at the same time just so happen to be talking about these new blockchain payment systems at the same time because they talked about it together. All right. The payment system aims to be friendly to governments, businesses, and even common citizens. Therefore, if the system becomes a success, a variety of hierarchies, from governments to the average man, could benefit immensely. He calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond. Haven't we not heard this somewhere before? Is this not Revelation, the 13th chapter, jumping off the page at you? Russian diplomat Yuri Ushakov, however you say it, confirmed that the new BRICS payment mechanism will boast state-of-the-art technology that will incorporate digital assets and cryptocurrencies on the blockchain. Okay? BRICS would take on the US dollar with the payment system, allowing member nations and other developing countries to settle cross-border transactions in the new mechanism. The development will add pressure on the US dollar, making its supply and demand dip in the global market. Okay? This is all purposeful. Okay? Did you have anything required, Quan?
Yeah, it's all on purpose. I was just reading the article there. Even the situation in America, the illusion that America is behind on this technology is an illusion because the Federal Reserve, through these different private partnerships, is already kind of ready to roll it out. They're just playing out the political the political infighting to make it look like, oh, okay, they're behind and they're not made these decisions. But the decision's already been made. The US dollar will have its own CBDC. They're just waiting for the right time. Uh,
Right. Right.
I
And
got an
that's why
article here.
this is why you
Uh,
see this all of a sudden push for Bitcoin ETFs, Ethereum ETFs. They're gonna
yeah,
bring in regulation to the cryptocurrency markets after they, and they're gonna make you being in those cryptocurrency markets extremely difficult while making their CBD systems convenient and easy and every day. You know what you got, champ?
yeah, I got this article right here, which kind of shows what I'm talking about. Um, it says the US is lagging behind on the CBDC development, says think tank. So if you've been watching, the rest of the world is kind of openly moving forward with their CBDCs, especially the different BRICS nations. And it looks like the US is bogged down with infighting as to how to move forward. As we're
Right.
going to show you, you got the Democrats, which are really pro CBDC. Well, that's how the game is being played. So the
Hmm.
Democrats and Biden are pro CBDC. Meanwhile, the Republicans like Congressman Emmer and these guys and Donald Trump are so-called against CBDCs. All right, and this infighting, it would appear, is causing the innovation to fall behind. But we know that behind closed doors, the Fed and Bank of America and all these institutions have already been working on it. They've already been working on it. So it's a foregone conclusion,
One
but it
hundred
has to
percent.
play out in the political arena. So it says the US is falling behind other countries on progress to develop a central bank digital currency. American think tank Atlantic Council has warned. The organization says that technological payments innovation of the US Federal Reserve is lagging behind its peers and competitors, with less than 20 people working on digital currency research and development at the central bank. In comparison, the People's Bank of China currently has 300 people working developing a CBDC, while the Bank of England, which is a key financial bank, has a joint task force between the Treasury and the Parliament. All right. So this is how they're playing the game right now. It would appear that the US is lagging behind, and the rest of the world is, moving forward with the CBDC innovation and almost being forced into it because of the whole dollar being used as a weapon situation, which is going on. Yeah. Yeah. So that was that. Did you wanna? Did you have the managed reality clip pulled up, or is there something you wanted to pull before that?
No. I don't have it, but you definitely can pull it up.
Yeah, so we had this clip that we had from a guy named Darren Moore Jr. On YouTube, and he goes into the title is a managed reality, the controlled demolition of the dollar and the crypto reset. And he's gonna use different clips from Putin just to show how this whole situation, the World War III algorithm to do with Putin and everything they did against with the sanctions is also playing into the hands of de-dollarization. So it's all being done on purpose. So that's why we tell you that the MOTB and World War III, all these prophecies are linked. They coincide. The one is working with the other, so to speak. So I'll play this. Let me speed it up again,
Yeah,
and
they make
we'll
you
pick
feel
it
like
out.
they play these games that there's this alternative media, this alternative thinking that's anti system and anti Illuminati, and when you Alex Jones and all these guys, it's all leading to the same thing. It's all
Yeah,
leading to
that's
the
right.
same thing. But we understand that what the scriptures say about how they're going to work on the mind of the leaders of the earth to go to war and fight, you know.
That's
And
right.
even with the terrorist attack that just recently happened over there in Russia, when you look at it, you know that okay, that was set up. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And we're gonna see what type of response comes out of that, and how that's gonna maybe possibly escalate something in the Ukraine. We're gonna see, because the whole
hmm
story is that these guys were fleeing to the Ukraine. They were supplied by the Ukrainians. They were trying to flee back over there for asylum. So we're gonna see.
God.
You got it,
All
bro.
right, should I play? All right, cool.
Program is complete when everything the American public believes is false.
Is, which is political control. And so you can imagine
Oops.
fishing fleets causing more problems, lots of pressuring countries around the world to step away from defending Taiwan. And I have seen how this goes. The war games, they all end up badly. They end up badly for if you think our stock markets are volatile today, the moment you start to see Chinese military start to move to their eastern shores, you will see volatility that is of a scale we haven't seen maybe since 2008. Every time the assets that sit on the island of Taiwan, everybody knows them, are impacted nearly immediately. The Japanese are forced to get involved very quickly, and the global economy suffers in think a couple of weeks, not a couple of months.
Mike Pompeo said that if China were to position for a hot war, the stock market would sell off like 2008, not in a matter of months, but in weeks. Pompeo was the head of the CIA under the Trump administration. The three-letter agencies understand the scenarios that are unfolding,
Hold
and
on,
yet
just one
we continue down this path of destruction.
Currency, the
Y'all let us know in the chat if the 1.25 is too fast. Because that's usually how we watch a lot of these videos.
Yeah, is it too fast? We could
I
drop
mean,
it
not
down.
for me, because that's what we do. You know what I mean? That's how I'm like Johnny Five with this shit. So for those that's in the chat, I'm showing my age. People don't even know who Johnny Five is no more, huh?
Johnny
But
Five is alive.
but yeah, if it's too fast, y'all let us know. Okay, the brother said it's all good. Y'all let us know. Go ahead, champ.
the universally accepted currency. How have sanctions, do you think, changed
the dollar's place in the world?
Вы знаете, это грубейшая, одна из
Well,
грубейших
I think this is one of the gravest strategic mistakes committed by the U.S. leadership, using the U.S. dollar as an instrument for foreign political confrontation, because dollar was the cornerstone of American prosperity and power, and everyone understands and understood that, because however many dollars you've printed, they go around the world, inflation is at a minimum, I don't know, 3% or so, 4%, which is an acceptable level for the US. And you can print as many US dollars as you like. Because the public debt of the US is testimony to that. But be that as it may, dollar is still the cornerstone of American power across the world. But once the US leadership decided to use the US dollar as an instrument for foreign policy confrontation, once they did that, they dealt a blow to the American power. I would be loath to, use for better words
Hold on just a second.
that are improper, but
And we talked about this on the previous algorithm. It's not about American power. It's about creating a world power structure, right? And so the you best believe that the top level economists and the risk analysts that are over the prognosticators that it talks about, what's that in Isaiah, they knew when you restrict nations from having access to the supply of US dollars, that devalues the dollar. When you're constantly printing dollars and you restrict the demand for it, so if you increase the supply of something and you're decreasing the demand of it, you're making it worth less. So this is what Putin is explaining. But what he is not explaining is that there's an intentional effort for this.
Yeah, because like we've kind of explained it in previous episodes that the monetary system is old. Even though it's digitized to a certain degree, it's still old. And so this new system, the MOTB system, is new. It's like new technology. So they have to have a reason to just get rid of that. And this is the reason. We're moving away from the so-called dollar system is ultimately moving away from the old banking system completely, because the old banking system is dominated by the dollar. So it's a reset. So now you see the BRICS and that are building the infrastructure for a new system, and the de-dollarization is just the excuse.
Yes.
Meanwhile, at the same time, the de-dollarization will be an excuse. Sorry, bro.
No, I wanted to just highlight what you're saying. The current banking system cannot operate without the US dollar, because the US dollar is the only asset, the only currency that is liquid enough for the current world economy to function. The world economy will not be able to function without the dollar. So to take the dollar out that system is to intentionally destroy the economic system as we know it. And
That's
all
right.
of these nations know that. All of them. Putin, Xi Jinping, the US, Britain, Sweden, Australia. Everybody knows that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So it is an intentional move towards the MOTB. You got it, bro.
Yeah, so then if you look on the other side of that, the response from the US, if everybody abandons that old system is also useless to them, which means they're going to have to innovate and join the new system. And then so what you end up with is everyone's on the new system, and the new system will be every country will have their CBDC and their digital ID, and they'll interoperate between each other through some new interoperable blockchain system, which allows for global liquidity to flow easily on a digital level, on a ledger,
Yes.
as opposed to correspondent banking, which is the way of today.
All right. So the brother asked, what does it mean for it to be liquid enough? when you have a something that's liquid, meaning, let's say a house is not liquid. You can't just get your cash, right? The Chinese yuan or the Russian ruble, you can't just get ruples over to this other bank on the other side of the world. It's extremely difficult. You will have to
Yeah.
have what Kwame is talking about, interoperable systems to negotiate transferring those currencies. With the dollar, you can just get that shit done. Right?
Yep. Yep. Because
So
the dollar.
being liquid is like having cash in your pocket.
Because remember,
I'm sorry, you got
yeah.
the chance.
No, I was gonna say because there's two components to the liquidity. One component of liquidity is the ability for an asset to be sold without affecting the value of the asset. So going back to what you said about a house, if you were to try and sell every house in New York City, the price of houses in New York City would plummet completely. Like it's like if you got a neighborhood, the only reason the houses retain value is because only one house is sold kind of at a time. If you have a neighborhood where everyone in that whole neighborhood decides to sell their house at the same time, you will quickly find out that that house is not a liquid asset because you ain't gonna be able to sell it for what you want to sell it for. Whereas the dollar is moving throughout the earth all the time in millions and billions and still retaining pretty much the same value from day to day. And it's the only asset. Sorry?
It doesn't depeg. It won't
It
lose
doesn't
its value.
depeg.
Yeah.
It's deep liquidity, and a part of that reason for that is there's the corresponding banking because dollars exist all over the world. No other country exists, no other currency exists all over the world in all these different correspondent banks. Because brothers have to realize that money doesn't move how people think it moves. Money still moves like you send a transaction from America to China, it could literally go through 20 banks before it gets to where you think it's getting to. That's why it can take 5 days for the money. It's quicker for you to like send money on a plane than it is to go through the usual correspondent banking. And it's extremely expensive because each bank is taking a fee. This is why you got to pay these massive fees when you send money from America to China. But these other currencies don't have that infrastructure according to the old banking system, which is why they want a new system, which is basically a network of computers, blockchain.
Yes.
Then you can do it, but not with the old system. The old system is set up for the dollar. It was the Americans and the British that set these banks up across the world and built it like that. The yen doesn't have that infrastructure.
That's right. The yen, the ruble, the yuan, they don't have the infrastructure to where you can just send money around like this. The system would break. The value, if the value of the Chinese yuan, all of a sudden the demand for it went up crazy. That would make the Chinese yuan so expensive. That would mean you would go to Walmart and shit would cost $22 for a pencil. And it would seem like it happened overnight.
Yeah.
Because
The system wouldn't be able to handle the fluctuations.
That's right. That's right. What keeps everything cool is the US dollar. Because there's a massive liquid supply of it to where demand across the world doesn't really, you don't feel it. It doesn't shift you around. I hope that makes sense.
Which you need stability. You need a certain level of stability to do business. Like if you're gonna get paid by someone, you need to know that the value that they're paying you is worth what it's worth, like next week or in the 2 days. Otherwise, you can't do business. You know?
Yeah, it's crazy because the only reason why I really understand this because I fuck around with crypto, and you have to understand. You got to understand liquidity pools, supply, because that can market capitalization. Because if it ain't right, you will get something. It'll you be sleep, wake up, it's a totally different situation.
Yeah, Yeah, another good way to understand liquidity is a lot of these billionaires, right? They're billionaires on paper. Like, for instance, Elon Musk, he can't sell all his stocks in Tesla in one day and have the money for that and have
Absolutely
the
not.
same value. He can only sell a certain amount of those stocks at a time because there's not the liquidity in that stock. If he were to dump those stocks all in one day, those stocks would be worth almost nothing because the demand isn't there.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so
You wouldn't be
yeah,
able to extract that value all at once. This
no,
is what you call whales. You know, you have whales and everything, and they hold a percentage of a stock, and they have to slow leak it out so they can get the value out. Just like what Raquel was talking about, they dumped it. If they dump whatever they're holding on the market, it would tank the market, and they wouldn't make no money.
yeah. That's why I think it's in their contracts that they can only sell either over the counter or um only a certain amount of time. I think it's in their contracts when they're
Yeah,
like CEOs and things like that. Yeah.
it's a mandatory hold. When they do buy, they have to hold it for like 5 years or some crazy shit. It's like 7 years. They can't
Mm.
sell. And usually it's tiered. You can only sell this percentage, up to this percentage at these years to protect the price. Okay?
Yeah. Whereas with the dollar, you just do what you want with it. It don't matter.
It don't matter. The
Do
dollar
what
is
you
so
want.
strong, people really don't understand. When we read Habakkuk, the second chapter, like when you read Habakkuk, the second chapter, understand how powerful this nation that they're talking about is. It's ridiculous. Everybody's gonna have to gang up on this hoe. That's the only way. You know, you
Uh,
ain't gonna, you know, you got it.
yeah, kind of.
Go ahead,
It
Jim.
is a very grave mistake. Look, even the American allies decrease their dollar reserves. They are starting to search for ways to shield themselves. Because if the US applies restrictive measures to certain countries, such as freezing assets or restrictions on transactions, then it is a very grave signal to the whole world. What did happen in Russia? Until 2022, around 80% of Russian foreign trade transactions were carried out in US dollars.
Russia was doing the United States a favor by using the US dollar. There's more demand for a currency. The more demand that you have for a currency, the stronger the currency is. So when we're told that the US sanctions against Russia were a success that crippled Russia's economy, that's just simply untrue. And Russia is now using different means to trade their different commodities with different countries and different currencies. So we've essentially taken demand away from the dollar and pushed it elsewhere.
And US dollar accounted for about 50% of our transactions with third countries. Whereas currently this figure has been brought down to 13% or so. But we were not the ones to prohibit the use of US dollars. This was not our goal. It was the US decision to restrict our transactions in dollars, which is absurd, especially from the point of view of the interests of the US taxpayers, because this decision has dealt a blow to the American economy, undermining the American power across the world. Incidentally, our transactions in yuan accounted just for 3% right now. We've gone up to 30% in transactions in rubles and 34% in yuan, in renminbi. So why did the US do that? I think it's self-conceived. They thought that the Russian economy would collapse, but it didn't. Moreover, look at the other oil producing countries. They are doing the same thing. They are following our suit. They start to pay for oil in renminbi. Do they understand what they're doing in the US? What are they doing?
Central banks are exploring CBDC, or central bank digital currencies. Right now, Ripple is one of the larger players setting up this technology and infrastructure for each central bank to use. They have over 10 central banks. When CBDCs are being used in the mainstream, there is no longer a need for a reserve asset. All the testing coming from the BIS is for countries to swap currencies bilaterally. That means that there is no reserve currency in between trades. Tokenized commodities, equities, currencies, everything is on a path to becoming tokenized. And the USA is making moves that they know will weaken the status of the reserve currency. In my opinion, they are pushing this system to the max, maxing out the debt, pushing the dollar to the edge because they already know it's coming regardless.
Yeah, so I think the
It, and that's what it is. That's
So
what it is.
they're making it to where what Ripple done, the Ripple Corporation has a blockchain system, trying to dummy this down, right? To where, let's say you go to another country, right? And you want to exchange your dollars for something else. That's called an exchange, right? Now, let's say you have multiple countries all over the world trying to do this at the same time. That can become cumbersome, right? Well, Ripple will give the capability, and Wakari Kwame explained this earlier, is that it can be ridiculously time-consuming and expensive to be going and trading through all these different banks to just get from one side to the other. Ripple will make it to where you can simply do it over the blockchain easily, cheaper and faster, saving people literally billions of dollars in transaction fees.
Hmm.
So if you're a smaller nation and you telling me that I can save $2.3 billion worth of transaction fees over the course of a year, or maybe even more, fuck yeah, I'll take it. Deal.
Yeah,
That's more
that's why
good.
even a lot of
Good
these
for my people. You got it, bro.
yeah, I was saying that's why a lot of these payment providers are switching over to these blockchain exchange because it saves them money, and that's how they're able to start now giving people cheaper rates to send money across the world. So this the private sector is already moving towards that, and the
Yep.
central banks are moving towards that too. So it's inevitable.
Yep. And regular people are using this, man. It's more efficient for me to send someone some Ethereum or Bitcoin if they're in another country than me to send them, you know, MoneyGram or whatever it is, because of how much fees you have to pay. It's cheaper for me just to send them a crypto. Now that won't be for long. They're going to make it ridiculously expensive and to get you to go into the CBDCs. But just for an example, you got it,
Yeah,
bro.
the cryptos are gonna be the non-national cryptos, BTC, XRP. These are gonna be for the oil that greases, the exchanges. The people are gonna have CBDCs.
That's
That's for the
right.
algorithms. I wanted to play this because this is, people say, well, you got CBDCs. How do you tie this into the MOTB? Well, quite simply, that's the monetary side of things. Now it's all about the ID. So they put everything together as one. And that's what's going to be on your chip, your ID and your permissions and licenses, and also your monetary. You won't be able to buy or sell unless you have it. So this is the World Bank president, Ajay Banga, creating a digital. Well, let's just play it. Let me see. Let's just play this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what he says.
I think providing infrastructure is a core element, but on top of that, creating a digital identity platform for citizenry is kind of foundational because, and I believe your government should be the owner of your digital ID.
Yes,
He and I both
absolutely,
agree.
100%
Private companies should not own that. It is the social contract of a citizen with their country to have an identity, a currency, and safety. You should not take that away from them. They should have
An identity, currency, and safety. That's the chip. That's what's going to be on the chip. All right.
the digital identity. That digital identity should guarantee the privacy of that citizen. It should help them with their security, but the government should give the identity.
Yeah.
Once you do that, then connecting them to the infrastructure that a private company, whether Ericsson or Verizon or combinations of them, in fact, mostly it's a combination, can build, then the question is, what do you do with it? that requires that digital ID so you can start connecting with that citizen. Now,
Right. So you have your digital ID, you have your CBDC, and now you can interact with the private sector to buy
Boom.
and sell.
Let me read the scripture to go with that real quick.
Come on.
Isaiah 10 and 1, you can stay right there where you are. You don't have to. We don't have to switch the screen. But Isaiah 10 and 1 says, "Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed." All of this stuff has been already set up for years, man. We've been reading about this. Years. The International Monetary Fund came out with a huge virtual currencies thing back in, it was either 2015 or 2017. Okay, they've been talking about this heavy for at least the last 10 years now. You know, and we 2 or 3 years ago, they had the deadline at the WEF for it to be able to be implemented by 2030. But we can already start to see that they want to get this thing done ahead of schedule. This is all what you're reading about when we read Revelation, the 13th chapter, about the mark of the beast, man. These are the components of it. Okay? And rational, reasonable people are starting to say, hey, wow, that stuff that was in the Bible, that kind of sounds like that. You got it, bro.
the question is, when you connect with that citizen, you must ensure that governments guarantee the privacy of that citizen. Because if you don't do that, you will run into trouble with the acceptance of the idea. So if you want this to be embraced around the world, yes, get the infrastructure, get a digital ID. That's what we used to talk about even earlier.
Yeah.
Get that going and then move from there.
Yeah, and based on that, you can be financially included. You can get the credit,
insurance,
you can
healthcare, education.
insurance. You can start a business. Everything is built on it.
SME credit.
You can get the
Get
credit,
insurance,
you can
healthcare, education.
financially included. You can get the
get
credit,
insurance,
you can
healthcare, education.
insurance. You can start a business. Everything is built on it.
SME credit.
Everything. This is the system that they want. Everything is interconnected, interoperable, and in order to access that system, that which is going to be digital, you're going to have that chip with the correct ID, which is going to be linked to your CBDC account. And he said financial inclusion, which is everybody. He just said it. You hear it right there. Healthcare, everything. You access it, and it's all going to be on the foundation of a digital ID.
You can get the credit,
insurance,
you can
healthcare, education.
insurance. You can start a business. Everything is built on it.
SME credit.
Sorry, you say that again? Up?
I said interoperable is just the ability of these different systems to coincide and work together. For identification system to work with a financial system, to work with a healthcare system, to work with whatever other system, and for they all to have the ability to sync and communicate. Different software systems working together and being able to communicate together. Okay.
Yeah, it's just like how they've kind of started to do that, like in the way that most things now, if you go to a website, you can sign up into that website using your Apple ID or your Google ID. You notice that? Like you don't need to just sign up everything all over again. You can use your Facebook ID, you can use your Apple ID or your Google ID. But then what happens is your Google ID and your Apple ID, every once in a while, now and again, they want more verification. So what's inevitably going to happen is you're going to have a government ID, which is going to be on top of all those things. So now if you want to use Google, you want to use all these things, you have to scan in. You need to scan in. And now you can use your social media, you can access all these different platforms. And then we already spoke about the X.com, which is the super app, which will have everything on there anyway, in one place. Which is really what they want. Did you have anything else on that particular topic, Art?
I have one video that I wanted to play. Yep. And you know the brother Pashab, he said once they hacked one, they got all your logins and everything is already hacked. So, I mean, that we already passed that point. To be real, we're already past that point. I wanted to read this real quick. 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11. At least Satan should get an advantage of us, but we are not ignorant of his devices, man. So through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, you know, we're seeing all this happening because, you know, we've been taught these prophecies and these breakdowns. We're able to see this stuff and immediately recognize it for what it is, the devices of Satan that are coming forth, you know. That's why we know there's a famine of the word getting ready to come around. That's why we know, the MOTB is getting ready to be pushed out. World War III is about to get kicked off. More draconian laws again getting pushed because the word tells us. Okay. Now I had this. There's a couple of sections on this. I'm gonna play the beginning part of it, and then I'm gonna skip.
How does a social credit rating sound to you? Imagine a world where absolutely everything you say and do is monitored, and every little bad act you've ever committed and every little good act you've ever committed is now used against you to say what you can and cannot do. Oh, you were caught jaywalking on that camera across the street? Now you can't go ahead and play video games. Now, if this sounds absolutely insane to you, I have something to share with you. This already exists in China, and now Western politicians have thought this would be a great idea to implement in our society so we can completely control everything our citizens also do. And the way they plan to implement this is through central bank digital currencies and the private sector with companies such as BlackRock. Now, if you want to understand exactly what they're planning to do and how they plan to do it, which has actually been laid out clear as day, listen very closely because Whitney Webb is going to do a deep dive on this very subject. Also,
okay, so yeah, I just wanted to play that beginning part because that's why we labeled this, you know, the illusion of choice. Everybody wants to talk about how or all these American politicians and pundits, how bad Russia is, how bad China is. Well, you got the West implementing the same policies. These communist policies, right? They're implementing the same policies. It's all leading to one thing. Okay, Edomite supremacist New World Order. Okay, so now I'm gonna skip. Let's play this.
Of the GDP. So we're essentially, if you look at the U.S. as a corporation, and in many ways it is, you know, we're a zombie corporation. You would never invest in us, you know, you never. Our debt is outpacing our growth. And so they have to find somewhere to sell this debt to. You know, it's been Japan and China and, you know, the Bahamas basically, you know, for the history of the U.S. selling debt. And now all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you know, we're seeing these private entity stablecoin providers just Pac-manning up government debt and just eating it up. And that's not going to stop. You know, we've heard from, you know, Walter Hessert, who's the head of strategy at Paxos, which is very integrated with PayPal. They run their PayPal stablecoin. And he's specifically said that we're going to see, you know, trillions of dollars of stablecoins, highly regulated stablecoins.
What the hell? They don't want this
issued.
Out, huh?
The only way that happens is if trillions of dollars of government debt are purchased.
So a recent report came out that discussed.
We were reading about that in Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. We always read this, right? This is how they control everyone is through abaya or debt. It's the main way. You know, Habakkuk 2 and 6. And shall not all these take up a parable against him and a taunting proverb against him and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his, how long? And to him that laden himself with thick clay. So we've seen within these private corporations are taking on digital currency projects. They're going to say, hey, they're going to make it cheaper, faster, easier for you to transact if you use their digital coin. They're going to peg it to the dollar or whatever currency. All right. But with it is going to be all types of regulations and controls. And it's just going to gradually take you to what we already know where it's going to take you, the MOTB. You about to say something, bro?
No. I was listening.
Okay, kind of. Play this again.
Discussing how most of the stable coins in the world in terms of adoption outside the US is happening in Latin America.
And for you bros that don't know about stable coins, a stable coin is something that's pegged to a fiat currency. So here, like if you go on Coinbase, you have USDC, right? The US dollar coin. And it's a stable coin, meaning it doesn't go up and down with market fluctuation. It just stays pegged to the US dollar. So one coin equals $1. Okay? It's 1 for 1.
Allegedly.
America, specifically in Argentina, leading the pack because of the financial instability there. So how do you view that in the context of the fact that the U.S. historically has used debt through the World Bank and some of the IMF, some of these institutions using debt to control these countries? Do you think stable coins could take the charge there?
I think stable coins are the ultimate technology for spreading U.S. government debt around the world. And they're using this really clever and diabolical framing of, hey, no, we're, these countries like Argentina, they've been wrecked by inflation. Their really bad currency is the issue. It's their bad currency, their fiat, bad governance, monetary policy. So we're doing a huge favor by giving them access to U.S. dollar denominated, essentially bank accounts. We're banking the unbanked. But no, really what you're doing is you're charging the global south a fee to use your bank account. And in a lot of these cases, these are offshore Bahamian bank accounts. Some of them are, they're now getting more regulated within the purview of the DOJ and the SEC and the CFTC and the Fed and Treasury. But historically, these have been basically offshore banks. And yeah, we're going to see high velocity of dollar usage, high volume of dollar usage. And we're going to see more and more countries relying on the dollar. And we're seeing that, in South America, as you stated, and in the global south, on the whole, and in parts of Asia, huge upticks of.
You're not going to just see it in the US dollar. You're going to see it in all these currencies. You're going to see it on the West and on the East. This transition to these digital alternatives, quote unquote alternatives. All right. And so now,
And I was gonna say, that Tether's not even backed by US dollars. It's backed by mainly the Chinese housing market.
It depegged like 3 days ago.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay, I wasn't really. Yeah, Tether's a ticking time bomb.
Like 3 days ago, it just depegged and went to 90 cents.
Yeah. Tether's a ticking time bomb.
Oh yeah, it's that. If you hold Tether, bro, you got some balls on you. So that thing's, I wouldn't play around with that shit. Anyway. These devils, man, they think deep, man. What's the scripture was like? Their mind is deep.
Yeah, the heart of every one of them is deep. Yeah.
The heart of every one of them is deep, bro. They really got some deep fucking, tentacles and pathways of wickedness.
When you break it down, these stable coins it was another way for them to digitize digitize fiat currency without having CBDCs. But most of the stable coin issuers are shady as hell on purpose. So when they implode, they're like, okay, well, you know what? We just need a central bank to do this.
Yep. You know what? This is too out of control. We're so sorry this happened to you. Let's get into this regulated system.
Yeah.
And people will flock to it, man. People will flock to it every single time, bro. Let's see if there's a little bit more on this, and then we can go to something else, okay, bro?
Cool.
stablecoin usage, of dollar usage, and it's being framed as this like humanitarian effort, wherein really it's debt serfdom.
Debt serfdom.
Now, what does debt serfdom mean? Well, it means that because of your country's inability to pay off a debt, you essentially become a slave to that debt. In other words, you took out a mortgage from the bank, you refuse to pay back that lender.
Yeah, and that's happened on both sides. The IMF and World Bank has done that all across the world, and the BRICS nations have been doing that for the last 10, 15 years, is making basically these nations slaves because of the debt loans that they've taken out. Okay, so I'm skipping. We know that.
For a private entity stablecoin to do more shenanigans with the programmability of their dollar denominated token rather than the government. Again, they can hide behind the restriction of customer access being in the private sector. They retain a lot more ability to do that than they would if they were openly in the public sector. We've seen this happen before. We've seen multiple times in the last few years banks restrict people for saying certain things online, or being around the Capitol building on a certain day, or protesting mandates, say in North America and in Canada, and taking away banker restrictions or rights to your bank account. So we've seen the private sector, the private banking sector, already flex these restrictions for being private entities. That will only be more accessible for them with programmability. They can take your money away, blacklist your money. We've seen this already with the FBI and the Secret Service coming on to Tether. They've blacklisted dozens of addresses at the behest of the regulatory arm of the United States. That is a power that will not be given up. It's too important as a tool. And so as they with one hand are pushing this as this financial tool to give sovereignty to the global south, at the same time they're onboarding literally US intelligence and law enforcement onto that very system that is a very transparent and surveillable, programmable system. So you can kind of see the dialectic there, the rhetoric versus the action.
And that's exactly it. Actions speak louder than words. We must follow the actions and not the rhetoric of what the government is actually saying. And I want to pose a question for all of you back at home. If you wanted to maintain absolute control over any entity, how would you go ahead and do that? Well, step number one would be to have as much oversight as possible over every little aspect of what's going on. And then you could hire certain departments to manage and ensure compliance in those areas so that whatever you want at the end of the day is going to be enacted, and that is going to be what's carried forward. And that is essentially what the US government is doing with central bank digital currencies. If we look at it from that perspective, it becomes very clear. Okay, they can now monitor every transaction you have because it's public record. Oh, they can also stop and blacklist certain addresses that they don't agree with. That is kind of scary, especially when you start to think about how any human is really corruptible at the end of the day. And sometimes people will let biases get in the way of actual rational decision making. In other words, if you're threatening the government in any capacity, even if they are absolutely horrible and completely corrupt, they will have the potential to blacklist you from doing day-to-day grocery trips just to survive because you spoke out against them.
God.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and see, the beautiful thing is when they create this crisis to push this CBDC, they're gonna blame Russia and them. Oh, we need to do this CBDC because of what they did, and they messed up the world banking system. They did it, so we need to do this. And then vice versa. On the other side, they're going to be saying the same thing. Oh, we need to do these CBDCs because of what America's doing. It's the Hegelian dialectic. But in the end, the result is the same. All the people end up under the same technology and system.
God.
You know?
Can't you see? Like Minority Report, can't you see? Can't you see?
Mm.
I think he's going to talk. They're going to talk about these CBDCs a little bit.
Okay.
That's not a future that I want any part of. Freedom of speech is not just important, but it is crucial if we want our society to continue to have the freedoms that we do have today. So if you agree with that, you're going to want to listen closely to what comes next.
The BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, issued a document, I think a couple years ago, talking about how the wholesale CBDC model was appearing to emerge as the preferred model of CBDC as opposed to retail CBDC. So how would these stable coins or some of their other, other things like deposit tokens figure into the wholesale CBDC system? Can you sort of explain for people that aren't aware of the two-tier CBDC concept, sort of what that architecture would be and
Sure.
why you are critical of it?
Sure. Yeah, the two-tier model for capital creation, people look at, I think people are now more aware of the fact that there's a two-tier model because they're looking at the digitalizing of, the US dollar system or really the financial system. But it's always been a two-tier model. It's sort of a misnomer that the dollar is the world reserve. They say currency, which it's the world reserve currency, but it's backed by the world reserve asset, which is US treasuries. And that's always been the case. The US government prints very little of actual, dollars or coins or, any sort of, kind of M0. Really, it's these massive amounts of debt that they create in these T-bills, these treasury bonds that then they sell to private banks to finance the US budget to then create the currency that we all use. So it's always been a two-tiered system. That's sort of how this gambit works. And the digital version of that will be exactly the same. So while there may be retail-facing CBDCs in some places of the world, maybe in China or in, the UAE, there's a possibility for the government to actually be involved directly in the creation of a retail-facing. Much more likely, we're going to see that be taken by the private sector and the government actually issuing these deposit tokens that act in the same way that US treasuries work as the backing to the retail-facing CBDC. So there's currency and assets that back the currency. That's always been the two-tier model. So now we're seeing private companies, creating the technology for these banks to do interbank settlement of securities. And that's actually what we saw with FedNow. That was last year within the US. It was just an updating of the treasury settlement within the United States. It wasn't a CBDC in any way. There was no token created. There's no retail-facing product. There's no accounts at all. It really was just modernized rails for banks within the Federal Reserve System to settle treasuries. So that is always the case. That will be the case. We're just going to see a new version of it that increases the ability of settlement and auditability. The main issue with the US dollar system is the lack of transparency. It's the obfuscation of,
It's so funny when you listen to these Edomites. They really think that it's going to be okay.
Yeah, because he does. The thing is with these guys, they don't take into context that there's going to be a massive crisis. Like even the guy that started the video, if there was a situation where he couldn't buy because he can't access dollars in his bank account, they told him they're going to give him a CDBC so he can go get some food from Walmart, he'll take it. So I don't know what he's talking about.
Right. It's like they're staring at imminent danger, but their mind doesn't want to accept it. And you can hear it, he's breaking it down, but there is a wall of understanding of destruction and what actually can happen that he don't want to say. He don't even want to speak it.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
It's gonna be yeah, I could see it. He was just trying to make it look like it's just going to be just like the old system, but digital. But it's not. It's going to be a system of resource control. Like, you know what I mean? It's going to be control, bro. So it's just going to be like issue in debt.
Right. And so it's just like, it's so funny how they're saying, oh, it can do this. It's programmable. They can stop you at any moment. They'll be able to, it's interoperable. It'll be able to work within all these different systems that control our lives. But it's essentially the same thing as U.S. treasuries and just settling those transactions. And no, motherfucker. No, it's not. It's way more. Like, danger, Will Robinson. Danger, Will Robinson. They're getting ready to really clamp down on this thing. and it's going to create absolute mayhem and chaos that we read about in Second Ezra, the 15th chapter. That we, all these scriptures that we highlight so much, when we talk about these things out of the Bible, man, this is good. This is something that's on biblical proportions. Okay, do you have something you was gonna pull up, Art? Because that's really all I had on this right here.
Yeah, I was gonna segue into Trump and
All right, I'm gonna add your screen. Boom.
yeah, okay, good. Yeah, so what I wanted to talk about was the political aspect of this because you've got the traditionally you got the conservatives, the right wingers, the truthers, right? The ones who are so-called against the matrix. These are the most of the guys, like most videos you see with people talking about CBDCs and in a negative light will be from truthers. And these are usually conservatives. They won't be Democrats, if you understand what I'm saying. These are the people that mainly are so-called against the system. And they've been given a messiah, and his name is Trump. Okay,
right.
So you got Trump and his disciples, Alex Jones, and Elon Musk is another messiah they've been given. Most conservatives worship Elon Musk as some savior. You know what I mean? Like, because he's against the system and the system's against him. Even though all of the infrastructure he builds goes hand in hand. I mean, the guy's chipping people in the brain. It's like, you know what I mean? He's making digitized cars which are controlled by mainframe. Like, it doesn't get more New World Order than that. Like, it's just so crazy. This guy, he was involved in PayPal, X.com. So, it is what it is. But the point is that the main people that are against these things follow Trump. So if you look at this article, for instance, right, it says Trump calls central bank digital currency very dangerous after vowing to prohibit Fed's digital dollar. All right. So he's basically come out against the digital dollar. He says he's going to shut it down. He says he doesn't. He says Trump said a so-called digital dollar would be very dangerous. That sounds like him, innit? Very dangerous. Um, Claiming it could create a situation where money suddenly disappears from people's bank accounts. He told Fox News in response to a question about his plans to block the Federal Reserve from formally issuing a digital currency. Now, this is actually a big issue for a lot of his followers, and they're going to vote for him because they think he's going to shut all this down. But the actual fact is, he's probably going to be the next president, and he's probably going to be the one to bring it in. And a lot of them are going to accept it because it's Trump who decides to do it. All right. I mean, I just looked at the results, and it looks like Trump is going to be the delegate for the Republican Party.
Not even
and
close.
And then this guy, this zombie who they've spent the last 2, 3, 4 years showing you that he's a zombie, how can he be the delegate? He's not a viable candidate. So they're basically showing you that Trump's going to win. Like, the minute they put this guy up, Joe Biden, and he's pro CBDC.
Yeah.
So they're making it into a what's it called? It's a partisan issue. So conservatives versus Democrats, and the Republicans are against CBDCs, and the Democrats are for it. And that's because, so when the crisis happens, the people who would normally be against it are going to accept it because their Messiah is the one giving it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, like, they don't want it, but now I need to use this technology because it's the only thing that can save us and the American economy.
Yeah.
And they'll accept it.
I got a quick precept to go with that. Revelation 13:11, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. So just like Rome, man, those two sides, and they play off of each other just to get a single thing done.
Yep. And they got Elon Musk, and he's gonna be pushing it because he's gonna accept it. Alex Jones and all these guys, and so that's why you have to be careful, because a lot of our people are being fooled into this politics, and they're following Trump now, thinking, oh, they're being smart. Yeah, man, we're not going to be Democrat no more. We're going to follow the Republicans and all this bullshit. No, don't follow either of them, because both these guys work for the same system and they have the same agenda. And don't be surprised if Trump is the president to bring in the MOTB.
Straight up.
And the scriptures speak about the liar. He's a liar. Oh, well, I'm going to stop it. He's not going to stop it. This is the same guy who pushed the V, right? Isn't he the V president?
Yep.
He's the V president, right?
Yep.
So when you see him specifically saying he's not going to do it, that's a sign to show you, yep, they're going to set up a situation where he's going to do it.
Yeah.
Their
mouth is always fixed for lies. You know what I mean?
And I wanted to share this about Donald Trump, right? It says, what ties does Donald Trump have to the Rothschilds family? Right? It says, when Trump was in his worst financial trouble, did I share my screen? Oh, yeah. Okay. When Trump was in his worst financial trouble, it was Wilbur Ross who got together with the creditor banks to make a workout deal with him, not to take all his assets and leave him penniless, personally penniless. Trump had personally guaranteed $900 million of his company debt and was close to having it all called because of his corporate defaults. In 1976, Ross began his 24-year employment with the New York City office of the Rothschild and Co., where he ran the bankruptcy restructuring advisory practice. By 1998, Ross was involved in 8 of the 25 biggest bankruptcies to date, including Drexel, Burnham Lambert, Texaco, Public Service of New Hampshire, Eastern Airlines. In 1980s, Donald Trump's 3 casinos in Atlantic City were under the threat of foreclosure from lenders. Ross, who was the senior managing director of the Rothschild & Co., represented investors in the casino. Along with Carl Icahn, Ross convinced bondholders to strike a deal that allowed Trump to keep control of the casino. So what does that tell you? Well, this is the reality of the world we live in. Trump is a little guy. He could have been finished a long time ago. The Rothschilds saved him, and now he's in their pocket.
He's locked in.
He's been locked in since when was it? The 1980s. We own you.
No.
He could have been finished. So when you see them pushing this idea that he's against the system and the system is trying to sue him, did anyone believe he was going to go jail? These trumped up charges that is just a show. Same thing with this guy Andrew Tate.
Oh yeah.
Same thing with Elon Musk. The SEC came after him. He's had a few trials. Alex Jones, didn't he have a trial? The Sandy Hook situation.
He ought to pay the
somehow
family $1 billion. It's just ridiculous.
And somehow he comes out the other end of it and he's still around, right? That's all to foster the idea that these guys are real opposition and the system is against them, when in fact the system is using them to fool people into believing in them. Don't believe in them, believe in the Yahweh Shem Yahushai and the men that the Lord sent to give you the truth. And the truth is, in America and across the world, these governments, regardless of who you think is in power, whether it's Democrat or Republican or whatever the case may be, they're going to make a decree that every man, woman, and child must receive that MOTB in order to have access to goods and services within the system. Period. And it's not going to matter what political party they're in at the time.
God. God. We're seeing it,
You know?
bro. We're seeing it piece by piece.
Hmm. Yeah. So I just wanted to show that, man. You know,
John, did you have anything
it's
else, man?
no. I mean, we touched on quite a lot there.
Yeah. I don't want to go too far, but hopefully that made more sense to you, Akyam. Kind of when we're looking at these things to show you how it's all connected.
And the CBDC thing will be probably in the debates. They're gonna talk about it. They're gonna
Oh yeah,
they're gonna talk
1,000.
about it. This CBDC and digital ID.
I'm not gonna read this because I want to get clipped. But I know I saw the brother put this into the chat. Pulling it up right there, bro. But yeah, man, they're gonna be doing a lot more of this stuff, man. They're moving head first. They're moving very, very fast. And the more they come out with it, the more we'll come and do follow-up updates and talk about it more and more. Just like you said, I think it's going to be interesting leading up to these presidential elections, if they even have one. And we're going to see how it goes, bro. Did you have something else you want to bring out?
Yeah, but I remember even the ID 2020. Trump didn't go against that, did he? Which that's all part of the MOTV system. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We just wanted to touch on that, just to go over some of the stuff. Let's keep an eye on this presidential run, because they're definitely going to make a note to push the MOTB, in its form, CBDCs as part of it, and we'll do some updates when them debates come. But just remember that Trump is gonna lie. He's gonna tell all of his followers, when I come in, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. And then when the crisis comes, he's gonna do the opposite.
Absolutely. Yep, we're gonna see it, man. So I don't have anything else, man. That was the points that I wanted to make, man. If you're done, we can close off with that, man. So all that being said, man, Lord willing, you bros were edified, man. Like I said, once again, from what I can see, brothers have beautiful Passover services all across the world. I got to click and just kind of listen to a few of the camps and listen to the apostles, of course. And, hey, man, it seems like it's going to be a crazy ass year. And we all say, call hello, Yabashim Yabashah for it. And keep our heads down, man. Keep grinding. We are so close. So we just got to keep hitting this thing. Y'all be brothers to one another. Love on each other. Be charitable. And increasing the fruits of the spirit. So that being said, I want to say, call hello, Yahweh, Bashim Yahweh, Bashim Rakah. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to you, Akim, out there pushing the word and the glory of Yahweh, Bashim Yahweh, and sincerity and truth, man. Shalom.
Shalom.